My name is Mosimann, and welcome to Game On Hockey, your look in 10 minutes or less of everything interesting that is happening right now in the world of hockey. Before we dive into that, which includes a couple of really intense kind of emotional stories, including the Columbus Blue Jackets tribute to Johnny Gaudreau, the Halifax Mooseheads having an absolutely incredible new goal celebration, as well as a goalie goal from the most uninteresting team in the National Hockey League. Before we get to all that, though, I want to tell you about Hyperdrive Hockey. It's the flagship podcast, comes at you twice a week on the Game Over national feed. If you're on YouTube, it's the one you're watching right now. If you're on podcast, it's in the same, you can find it in the same feed as all of our other stuff, as well as looking up Hyperdrive Hockey to subscribe there. Max and Daphne dive into everything in the world of hockey with a really cool kind of lens that especially in Western Canada we don't really hear a whole lot. So give that show a go. They're also big nerds, and it can be really fun to hear what kind of spaces they end up getting into, because often it involves actual space. So a couple quick results to throw your way from last night as the Calgary Flames remain undefeated on the year with a 3-1 win over the Chicago Blackhawks, and the Oilers finally getting their win in a game that should not have been as close as it was given the caliber of the teams involved, but hey, Oilers gonna oil, right? So that game wrapping up 4-3 in overtime. Matvei Michkov getting his very first 2 goals of what I'm sure are going to be plenty throughout his NHL career. If you want to get into the more in-depth breakdowns of both of those games, you can head over to Game on Edmonton with myself, or Game on Calgary. I believe Peter Klein was covering that game last night, and he can get you all set on the nitty-gritty of that particular matchup. Now, as for today, I wanted to start things off on a bit of a touching and somber note, as the Columbus Blue Jackets had their home opener last night, their first game, of course, since the passing of the Gaudreau brothers, and you knew they were going to do something really cool and special, and I don't think any of us expected what ultimately happened to be what it was, and it was really incredible. So they go to line up against the Florida Panthers. Panthers end up ultimately winning the game, but that's whatever. That's not the story here. The Columbus Blue Jackets lined up with 4 players on the ice, and they left Johnny Gaudreau's left wing spot wide open. The puck drops. They win the faceoff over to Johnny's spot, and both teams just wait. 13 seconds go by, fans giving a huge standing ovation, the referees blow the play dead, and then they start the game with a proper 5-on-5 lineup, like you would at any given time. Johnny Gaudreau's number raised to the rafters as well at Nationwide Center in Columbus. Can only imagine that something similar will happen when Columbus comes to Calgary for the first time this year. But it was really well done. I know, especially as Canadians, we can kind of go, the teams that best handle ceremony and pomp and circumstance. Well, it's the Montreal Canadiens. We don't give American teams enough credit, especially the smaller market teams, for how good they can do things in the different way, because I don't think you would have seen a ceremony like that if it had been here in Canada. So full caps off the Columbus Blue Jackets for putting that together. It was an emotional one, and it was a really good one. Heading on to something a little bit lighter, the Halifax Mooseheads have an incredible new way to celebrate goals in their facility. I want to say it's like the Scotiabank Center in downtown Halifax. Look, these buildings change their name on the time, and it's Canada. We are an assortment of telecom companies and banks in a trench coat putting this whole weird country together, so it's named after one of those anyway. But it hangs in their arena. It is literally a giant moose head. Now, if you're listening to this on the audio form, I can't describe it better than that. It is a giant moose head whose eyes glow scary-ass red, and smoke comes pouring out of its nose. Think of the Calgary Flames Blasty logo, but a moose, and hanging up in their arena. It is so cool. If this was an NHL team, it would instantly be like the number one goal celebration device that exists in the league. Because, I mean, every team has something like a little bit different that they do. The Calgary Flames, of course, they're so original. Blast a bunch of flames from flamethrowers they have all around the building whenever they score. The Tampa Bay Lightning have like a legit Tesla coil that hangs up in their arena and crackles with lightning whenever they score a goal, which is just bafflingly weird and very cool. Minnesota Wild also have a very cool one because Minnesota is known as the land of the state of 1,000 lakes or something, or state of 10,000 lakes. One of those. And in the back, kind of far corner of the XL Energy Center, they have a model of a lighthouse that lights up and blows smoke and kind of waves around because, you know, a lot of lakes, a lot of lighthouses in Minnesota. That one's very cool as well. The Vegas Golden Knights, I'm biased. I deeply love the city of Vegas and that team, and everyone I've been lucky enough to deal with from the years with that team has been really great, so I'm a little biased towards them. But in the playoffs, they had a giant dragon that blew fire over their silly little fortress. Also very, very good. So really, hi, teams, let's make hockey more fun. Have very cool, silly goal celebrations like the Halifax Mooseheads and their giant, silly moose. One more story before we wrap up Game on Hockey today here on the Game Over Network. If you like this show, like it. If you loved it, please subscribe and tell your friends about all the stuff we have going on, whether we have a Game Over show to cover your favorite team, covering all the teams here in Canada, or just like some of our podcasts. Please, sharing, it means everything to us as a small little media company. Now, wanted to wrap up with the most boring team in hockey, even though we've mentioned them a couple times, the Minnesota Wild. Oh, Minnesota. I know they don't play like that trap anymore, but still, of all the teams that spark joy, Minnesota really, really kind of doesn't. So there is a conspiracy now that the goalie goal that Philip Gustafsson scored yesterday for the Minnesota Wild was in fact an industry plant to make people more excited about the Wild, because outside of Marc-Andre Fleury getting weird and Kirill Kaprizov existing, there's not really much going on for that franchise. But now, hey, look at them go. They got a goalie goal. Hey, good for you, Minnesota. Now get rid of your current jerseys and go to your reverse retro ones in the old North Stars colors, because they are so much better than whatever you're wearing now. That'll wrap us up for this episode today here on Game on Hockey. Like what I said before, if you liked the show, like it. If you loved it, please subscribe and tell a friend and help this little company try to make some more waves here in the hockey world. Coming up for you tomorrow, there is no game overs. No Canadian teams are in action, so the next time you will see game overs popping up across your feed will have the Kings. Tonight there's no Canadian games, but tomorrow we will have the Kings and Habs, the Senators and the Devils, Canucks and Panthers, Oilers and Preds. So all those Game Over networks will have shows going on immediately after those are done. And you can find those wherever podcasts and wherever you're watching this right now, which I assume is YouTube. Unless you've clipped it and put it somewhere. The internet's such a weird place. I'm Graham Mosimann. Have yourself a great day. We'll talk tomorrow here on Game on Hockey.